So let's go ahead over here and learn a little bit more about how to import a terrain from Civil 3D, right? So this is kind of like recurring requests, especially for infrastructure projects, civil projects, and whatnot. But several times you're going to have a 3D file that will contain contour lines on a in a 3D shape, right? So how do we take that and bring it to cmBuilder and convert that to a terrain in cmBuilder, right? So these are the steps that we're going to learn a little bit about today. So first of all, we need to open the model in Civil 3D or AutoCAD 3D just to make sure that that's a 3D shape. Because several times you're going to get like a drawing that is in 2D, so the contour lines won't have any elevations. And you need to figure out if that file, the 3D DWG, is already a surface or not, right? So if it's not a surface, we need to create that surface in Civil 3D. And if it's a surface already, you can jump like a lot of steps over here and go directly into Navisworks, okay? So let me close this and bring this over here so we can have my notes. And basically, let's start with the process of creating a surface from a file in Civil 3D, right? So in the case where you don't have a Civil 3D license or anything like that, you can reach out to our team and we can try to help you as fast as we can to convert that file for you. But in the meantime, if you have the license, you can follow the steps that I'm gonna show right now. Okay, so to create a surface, let's go over here and open a file in Civil 3D, shall we? So I have my Civil 3D open over here, and I'm gonna bring in a file and into this so we can open it and take a look on how that file looks like in the view, right? So this is the file that I'm working on right now. It's a little bit cleaner than usual. Like most of the times you won't have like such a clean file, but cleaning up depends on how complex your model is and whatnot. But the main thing at this stage here, in the cleanup stage, is for us to isolate the contours layers. So usually these layers over here, first of all, we need to check if this file is a 3D shape or not. So to do that, we just click on this little arrow over here and we look at from the sideways. So if these are like showing in elevations, of course, they are 3D lines, right? So second, we're going to isolate the contour layer, right? So to do that, I'm gonna use this command over here called lay ISO, and we need to adjust the settings of that command once we use it, right? So I will just type in here lay ISO, and then I will hit S on my keyboard to activate the settings, and then I will just like make sure that I have this turned off, right? Instead of lock and fade. So when I hit O, it will make sure that every other layer that I do not select will be turned off. So now I can select the layer of the contours that I want and hit enter, and all the other layers will be turned off, and I'm left with just the layers that I want to create a surface from. Okay, this is the case over here. So once I clean up my view, uh, exactly, this is the process if you don't have a surface already. If you have a surface, we would jump into the other part of the process that it goes directly into Navisworks. Okay, so now that I clean up my layers, I will go here and I will create a boundary. So the reason why we need a boundary shape is just because if I do not create a boundary over here and I created my surface directly from this shape, you see these areas that kind of like have an opening over here. So basically what Civil 3D is going to try to do is to create a surface from the boundary box, the bounding geometry of this whole area over here. So there will be a lot of openings on the perimeters that will be filled in with like surfaces that just does not contain any information, just like a flat surface. We will see in a minute how this looks like. But before I start, I will go ahead and I'll create a boundary layer. Okay, so I am going to create a boundary layer using the layer 0 over here. Okay, so turn this on. Second. And I'm going to go ahead and draw a boundary with the polyline command. So polyline command, you just hit PL, and this will start the polyline command. And make sure to not use the snapping function, because otherwise you're going to be snapping the contour line. So your bounding box, your bounding limits will have like different lines in different elevations. So I'm going to hit F3 on my keyboard over here to deactivate snapping. And that way I can select a line, start creating the line that will define exactly the area that I want to export as a surface. So your contour lines probably will have like a bigger area than your project. So you can try to get something like outline this to a little bit further than what your project is required, right? So we're gonna go ahead and do this bounding over here, so you can get a little bit of the context on the surroundings, and then we're gonna go ahead and close this back, okay? So I created my surface over there. Oh, sorry, my polyline over there for the boundary. And it's important that this is all in one single shape. If I create this as a line, I won't be able to select the boundary. I need to create something that is grouped with several lines, and it's a closed area, right? So that boundary that I created over there is over here at the bottom, as you can see, okay? So this will help me define exactly where is the part that I want you to bring over to cmBuilder. And the next step is to create a surface item. So here is where I'm gonna stop coming back to the PowerPoint over here, because basically all these actions are just to like describe what I'm gonna be doing here. So first of all, we're gonna open this tool space. And if you don't have this open, you can start your surface from this create ground data like menu here on the home tab. So you can click on surface and you click on create a surface, right? So when you do that, you can put in like a name over here. Let's say a name is going to be existing ground, like EG, something like that. Okay. So when I click OK, you will see that there is a new surface on this tool space over here, right? So this surface, EG, has like a lot of stuff in it. And now we need to define like what is the contour lines that are going to be used to create that surface. So I'm going to click over here in definition, and I'm going to click on contours, right click, and click on add. I can also, instead of doing that, I can go here into manage, then, modify, then click on surface, and then going to add data and contours. Okay, so you can put a description here of those contours that you're selecting, whatever. And also these factors over here, these parameters, I usually use whatever is the default that Civil 3D has, because like I more for like kind of understanding what's going on here than like anything else. But you can like search and online what these values means. But I have been using the default parameters for a while, and like it always works well. Okay. So when I hit OK, now I need to select the contour lines. So I will do that, but I will just hide the bounding element for now, because I want you to click and select all the control lines. Okay. So when I do that, it will you will see over here that it's selected 404 elements, and I just need to hit enter, and then the surface will be created. Right now, I'm gonna get a lot of arrows over here, right? So you can ignore all these arrows. They are just like basically just to show some stuff related to the geometry, and that some lines are broken and whatnot. So like usually I just ignore those as well. Like there's nothing relevant in these errors. And we cannot see the surface yet over here because the layer of the surface is turned off. And then when I turn this layer, you can see the bounding box that I mentioned before. So like the software, like Civil 3D, use this outline over here to create the whole surface. And also I cannot see the surface directly right now because I'm looking from a 2D perspective. But if I change in like 3D, I will see the actual triangulation of the surfaces. So this is what we're trying to avoid over here. See, the areas that I did not have a control line for, Civil 3D just connected this whole thing and created like a flat surface over here, create a flat surface over here, another one in different areas. You could export the 3D shape as it is, like this, and bring it over to Blender, and then like kind of like adjust it, clean it up a little bit. But instead of doing that, I'm gonna work directly in Civil 3D because once I add these contours, you see. Okay, so let me see if I yeah okay. We will specify that boundary, right? So now to specify the boundary, I'm gonna click on boundaries over here and right click, add, and then you can put a name, right? So limits, whatever. And from this, you can choose what is the type of boundary that you want. I usually just select outer, non-destructive, so you won't break in of the lines and things like that. When you hit OK, now you can select that boundaries. And then, as you can see, Civil 3D used this boundary to cut that shape, and we now have like a surface only for the area that is relevant for me, and also it's taking out like all of these extrapolations that it did on the kind of like surfaces on the surroundings that would be just a flat extrapolation. Cool. So basically, now we have our surface created, right? So from this surface, now I can bring my model into Navisworks. But before I do that, I always suggest that you take a quick look to see if this Civil 3D shape is geolocated. Most of the times it will be geolocated. And the idea to check this is to use this command over here, ID, to check the coordinates of a point. So if I go here in Civil 3D and I type in ID, hit enter, you can select any point, right? So I'm going to select, let's say this point over here. And when I select this point, I will see in my commands over here that there are some coordinates for that point. So the order of magnitude for these coordinates are showing me that this is geolocated, right? So I have like my eastings and my northings over here and my z coordinate for that point. So this is important because that way we won't be able to, we will need to locate this geometry manually in cmBuilder. If this geometry is not geolocated in Civil 3D, then you will have to be geolocated manually, right? But in this case, this geometry is geolocated. So now that I've finished everything that I need to finish here, I will simply save this file. I'm not going to export it. I'm going to save this file in with just a different name because I already have like my surface created. So I'm going to put over here contour lines surface, right? And we'll save this as a DWG. Don't need to export in different formats, anything. And then the fastest way to bring the surfaces to cmBuilder to convert it to an FBX file is to open the same model in Navisworks, right? So as far as I know, Civil 3D natively without like any installing any add-ons or anything like that, there is no way to export that to an FBX file, right? So I will export this. I will open this DWG in Navisworks, and then basically I'll just export that file directly to an FBX from Navisworks. So facility to your question, if your surface is already created, we are going to jump into this point over here, right? So if the surface is done already, you just simply jump into the next part of the process, which is opening the model in the DWG file in Navisworks, checking the scale to see if the scale is correct, and then exporting the FBX. The scale, I put this item over here because Civil 3D, you have the option to open that in imperial units or in metric units. And this is something that confuses me a lot because like sometimes you get file in metric and you open imperial and then there is a conversion and or vice versa or things like that. So usually I prefer to check the scale in Navisworks just to make sure that like whatever I'm exporting from Navisworks is exactly what I want to see in cmBuilder, right? So to check the scale, you can simply go into a review function over here, and you can measure like any point you get to see the order of magnitude over here or something that you already know that what would be the scale for and so on, right? So quick way to do that. And now that we have this shape over here, basically cmBuilder does not can you import your Navisworks directly into cmBuilder without exporting to FBX, yes. But as if you notice, like I didn't have an Navisworks file. I had a DWG file that cmBuilder is not compatible with yet. So like I opened the same file in Navisworks just so I could convert to a file format that cmBuilder reads. So you can either use NWD or you can use an FBX. It's up to you. Okay. But basically, what I like to do right now is to clean up like these lines just because so like I will have like just the shape, but it doesn't really matter that much because cmBuilder won't read the lines anyways, so we will only read the surface. Okay, so from here we can go ahead and output this either in Navisworks or an FBX file. It's up to you. And then from here we're gonna hit OK, and I will export this FBX. Cool. So straight, you said, can you save it in Navisworks and then import? Yes, you can import Navisworks files and FBX files in cmBuilder. Like both of them will work, but regardless, we need to go through Navisworks because we need to convert the DWG, right? So I'm take from Civil 3D, I'm exporting a DWG, and I cannot bring that into cmBuilder directly. I need either an NWD file or an FBX one. Okay, and the way to convert this is basically using Navisworks. So I just exported my FBX, and now that I have my FBX file generated, I can go and import that into cmBuilder, right? So to import this into cmBuilder, I will first of all define the geocoordinate system because I know that this file is geolocated. I will confirm the scale and position once everything is imported. Then I'll create the terrain for the model and then hide the terrain shape. So let's do that together now. And I will open this scenario over here, which is like the address of that location. And first of all, I need to make sure that I'm working with my correct geocoordinate system, right? So I'm gonna go back into the project, and like I mentioned in another workshop, in the previous workshop, several times you won't know what is a geocoordinate system just because that information is not readily available for you. Usually, like people don't put that on their files and so on, but you do have the lat long of your project here available for you in cmBuilder. So what I showed in our previous workshop is that I can copy this lat long and then go here into ChatGPT and ask like, what is the most probable coordinate system for a construction project in this lat long, right? So if I copy paste that information here, ChatGPT will give me the most probable coordinate system on that area. So this is like good. Most of the times this works really well, right? So this one little caveat that I noticed the other day is that like sometimes it gives you the EPSG code over here, and but I've noticed that sometimes ChatGPT take like gives you the wrong code for this coordinate system. So just make sure whenever you're copying this code and putting here into the project coordinate and the geo coordinate system, you just go over here and add, copy paste that code in here. Just make sure that when you do that copy paste that this value, this label here is the same as ChatGPT gave you. Okay, just confirm that before you select it. And then I'm gonna select this guy over here, and I added this new geo references system to my file, to my folder. And as you can see, it's like the same as the previous one that we already had. But just to make sure, I'm gonna use this one. And I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna use this one to geolocate. So now this is gonna be the default geolocating system whenever I bring in a new file inside cmBuilder, okay? So when I go back into my scenario, I will upload that new model. Okay, pop this one. And once this finishes converting, it shall show up in the correct spot because I defined that geolocation system and the model was geolocated, right? So as you can see, it showed up in the correct location with the correct scale and also with the correct elevation. If you want to confirm any of these values, if this is in the correct like elevation or something like that, you can simply like measure any point in this surface by going over here and measure sea level elevation, and then measure any point over here to see like how off they are, like if they are correctly placed and so on. Okay, so now with the surface at the right location, I just need to create my new terrain. And the reason why I'm doing this is because the project in cmBuilder, like this data for the terrain is coming from a service called Mapbox, and not always is going to be accurate enough based on the locations that you are. If you're working on like the countryside, the level of the details of the surfaces are lower compared to the city centers and things like that. But also you might be working with like a big area or like infrastructure project or things like that, that you want to make sure that you're working with the correct surface, right? So now you can quite see very clearly here the difference between the surface in cmBuilder and the imported one. And now I'm gonna go here, my terrain, create a custom terrain using a model. I'm gonna select that surface file, load it, and then here in the there's only one thing that we need to adjust at this stage is the smoothing distance. So the smoothing distance is a little slider for you to define how far off from the area that I have data for, like the surface is covering, how far off this action should impact, or like what is the extrapolation outside of the perimeters of the surfaces, or if your surface has a hole in it, how far off we're gonna use the algorithm to fix the parts that you don't have that information, right? I usually put this in here in the middle because I like to see a blending, a interesting blending between the areas that do not have data to the area that I have data for. Okay, so when I hit save, you see that this will change the shape of my terrain now. So this is the new terrain, and this is the old terrain, right? So we can see very clear here the difference. And once this new terrain is generated, I don't need this surface anymore, right? So this surface was used just to adapt the terrain, right? So any surface that you import in cmBuilder that represents a terrain um, should be used only for you to adapt the terrain to that surface, because I cannot create openings on that surface. I cannot create excavations for it. Things cannot be projected on top of imported models. So I'm using the surface just to modify the terrain in cmBuilder. Okay. So now that I have this surface in the right spot, in my terrain is created, I can choose to either hide this from all milestones or simply remove that from the scenario. And if I remove it, the terrain will remain like modified. It won't go back to the previous terrain. So usually I prefer to hide it from all milestones just so I will have a reference to what adjusted that surface to my terrain. So as you can see now, like this road is quite adjusted compared to what it was before. So if I go back to what it was before, the road was all kind of like sloped to the sides, and the new terrain is showing that this is way more accurately. Okay. So this is it for the step-by-step on how to import a terrain surface from Civil 3D. Okay, so let me take a quick look at the questions over here. What happens if we export NWC from Civil 3D by NWC out command? Does it work? I don't know. I never tried it. I didn't even know that this command existed. I'm not an expert on Civil 3D. I just gather the information that is relevant for us to bring the stuff into cmBuilder. But you guys are welcome to test other informations and test other shapes, or like commands that you already know, to make this process a little bit more efficient. Okay. Try to import CAD surface and it comes to cmBuilder scale like 100 times up. So this is Vasily, this is why I mentioned that you should always try to check your scale before you bring it to cmBuilder. Sometimes, depending on how the models are created in the origin, you're gonna get like a unit transformation over here. You can just scale things the way that you prefer directly from here, and then you export that to the scale that you want. Or you can use the cmBuilder scaling factor as well. So if you go over here and edit B model for FBX files, you can go into scale model units and try to select another scale here to see if that will make the trick. Okay. Any update to being able to apply a topo surface to a milestone. So Britain, this is in the works already. We are kind of like working still on the Google Earth import, right? It turned out it turned out to be like a more challenging feature than we were expecting at first. That's why it's taken a little bit longer for us to finish that Google Earth import. But once we're done with that function, we will start working on that applied topo surface to a milestone, right? So the way that this tool is going to work in the future is that you will be able to create several shapes of your terrain over here. So you can create like your existing terrain, you can create like your proposed terrain, so on and so forth. And then when you create your excavation operations, and I create a cut over here, I could create that cut, and I will use this tool cut to terrain. So I'll be able to select here which terrain I want to use as a reference for that cut you go to, right? Same thing for the fill. I want to fill this to the proposed terrain. I want to cut this to the proposed terrain, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we would just take and apply that same shape of that cut, of that terrain that you created to the cut.